Your Uncle Earl and myself decided natural law might be, just so that they can understand the difference of what you said. Look at it. Oh, I say yo ha, hey,
Fort Community College, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, no, yo, wata, pebi, agi, tabi, ihaji, ya, bino, yo. Hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya yo hey ha hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey ya hey Fort Beck Community College, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pebi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey ha ya hey ha ya hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya yo hey ya hey yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey hey Fort Beck Community College, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pebi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey ha ya hey ya hey ya yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya yo hey yo hey yo hey ha ya hey ya hey Fort Beck Community College, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, wata, pebi, agi, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo.
Ha, mi tako yapi. Dayawa chia kapido. Hello, relatives, and again, welcome to the Buffalo Chasers podcast. I want to thank those that are joining on the webinar, and those of you that are following us on our live stream on the Facebook. Again, thank you for joining us. We're at the week number 66, I believe, of the podcast. I want to thank these gentlemen for showing up again and helping us out on our podcast, bringing that good woke soppy in a good way. Dekshi Earl Bullheads in the house. Dekshi Tommy Christian in the hizzy. And China, Aisha Chie, and Marty Ream in the house. All right. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Again, I'm Elijah Hopkins. And so what we try to do, if you're new to our programming here, is we try to follow some of our ways as far as starting off with a prayer. We usually have either Dekshi Earl or Dekshi Tommy offer a prayer for us. But since we have a special guest, China Marty Reem, I'd ask if you could just share a prayer with us in a good way, if you're able to help us out a little bit like that. You know,
Mitugashi dagwakanda guskashka shitugapo wiodoha kita Chatka magyabi. Mitugashi nagaha mitugash. Dakota nakona oyadeb the way yuhana mitugashi nechin wachewa gya. Mitugashi nagaha gichida zuye ahagasam Ukraine Russia. Mitugashi nagopta mitugashi je nechin wachewa gya mitugash. Mitugashi wichinjana Koshkabi win Koshkabi Weab Fort Peck Rezek Tami Tugashi Yuza wo Nechin Wachewa Gia me Tugash Ami Tugashi Nagaha Fort Peck Community College Wayawa me Tugashi Itancha be me Tugashi Ochangu Shao Chanku Hansk me Tugashi Nechin Wachewa Gia Ho Panabi now hey
my brother, thank you for sharing that beautiful prayer with us. And before we get started, just a couple of announcements here. Get back to this tab here. Okay. So what we try to do is to incentivize participation.
Tashupa dinner.
Oh, Tashupa, Hechitu. We have some winner. Winner. And so
winner, Tashupa dinner.
Jackets, and we got some Kindle Fire tablets up for grabs every week. And so the winners, we have a couple items to give away. So we have a Kindle Fire tablet up for grabs, and the winner of that is an individual named Gregin Wortman. Winner, chicken dinner. All right. Congratulations, Gregin. And then we also have a Cho Buffalo Chasers jacket. It's like you letter in being Indian when you wear this jacket. Just it ups you level up at being Indian. And the winner of that jacket is Nicole Weston. Winner, chicken dinner. Congratulations to Gregin and Nicole. You can retrieve those items at the War Eagle Vision Building. Or you can just give us a call, 406-768-6370. Give us your name and mailing address, and we'll hook you up. So congratulations to both of you. So give us a like, give us a share, make a comment on the social media post for this video for this week. That's how you get your name in the hat. So I encourage you to do that. So with that, I want to pass over the mic over to one of you gentlemen. Actually, Tommy, what do you got for us?
Hey, Chituelo Dai Chana Tushka. Hey. Amitake Piambe Tukile Michante Taoa Galake Nahana Page Usa Pelo. Oh, hey, Chajemita Wamni Shage Toba Imachiapi. Emia. All right, as we do these things, and again, ladies and gentlemen, we do these things all the time, and sometimes Tushka Elijah gets a little bit caught up and busy taking care of his family and other things like that. I always hasn't had the time to put it on YouTube, but I got some concerns about they can't find it on YouTube, and so he's going to look after that, make sure it's taken care of. But no big hurry, Toshka. It's just heck, too much singing, but he's going to take care of that and all that good stuff. But as we do these things, we do them for of course, the mental health aspect, how we continue our life on. It started originally from the COVID thing when we were so closed in and whatnot. Now we're out and about, but we found that it's a good way to communicate, good way to get used to this IT perspective, this informational technology, virtual experience thing. And so we continued our efforts, and we'd like to thank, of course, the what is it? The American Indian College Fund for initially helping us out. Debbie, her horse's thunder, for kind of managing that whole affair and really getting us down the road and all that good stuff. But at the same time, we wanted to also help people understand the importance of what we kind of need to look at as it relates to cultural ineptness. And we're not just speaking of non-Indian people, we're also speaking of Indian people, even those that have lived on a res all their lives. Sometimes there's a little bit of cultural ineptness there. And we try to share that in a good way to help us understand the importance of being a little bit more culturally aware of who and what we are as a people, the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota people here that live on the reservation, and so that you can always be able to up enhance your cultural awareness, and then be able to continue to be culturally responsive. Oh man, give me hallelujah, boys. I'm preaching here now today. I'm telling you, well,
hallelujah,
I'm gonna pass the hat.
hallelujah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass the hat here in a bit. But as we do these things, we need to understand the importance of that diversity and the uniqueness that's based on natural law that should enhance and enrich the understanding of our young people for the sake of their growth. And so in that, we always are doing things for others, not necessarily personal growth, but for others. And with that understanding and with that naturalness that's involved, we're always in preparation of being good to everything and anybody as well as we can. And so there's a principle that we follow there according to our way under natural law. I've shared with people that for the first 27 years of my life, I was a Catholic, and my dad made sure we had a moral, ethical decision-making process that we stood by and we followed and all that good stuff. But at the same time, after my natural father's death, I was kind of led in a direction that I had little or no understanding of. And again, I decided, based on I gained some understanding, I decided of my own personal mature mind, based on critical thought, and of course being open-minded, to choose to live a traditional life. So it's not against Christianity. As a matter of fact, that just in the traditional way of life just enhanced my ability to have this moral, ethical value system to make my decisions on. You see how that works? And so we're not going against anybody. We're including that whole process. We're understanding the influences that you may have if it comes from a Christian doctrine or traditional way of life in the spiritual way. And then we gain understanding. Indian people that choose to live this way in a traditional aspect don't live by a rule or regulation as much as they have that freedom of spirit to go out and make personal choices based on critical thought. Now, I hope that makes sense to you. And that's what we're going to talk about today, just a little bit more about the natural influence that under natural law of your spiritual aspect of who we are. So we're not religious per se, but we're more spiritual as it relates to that freedom of spirit. And again, understanding that our intent is to always be Dakota, Nakona, Lakota. I'm your ally. I'm your friend. I'll help you out in times of need. That's the definition of that word and how we refer to ourselves. And so with that understanding, we're just going to talk a little bit about that. And I know that Chie Earl has a little something to share on that as it relates to some of the Dakota, Lakota, Nakona words that, and I'm asking Tushka, Marty, Chatka to kind of think about a Nakona word that would apply to the discussion here today as it relates. I know that Chie Earl can speak on the Dakota, Lakota, but maybe Marty, just keep in mind a word or two that we can explain to help us understand that diversity that exists out there that we don't talk about. We don't go out and evangelize about this. We're not role models as much as we are modeling a role. So we just usually live it. We walk what we talk in a good way. So kind of like that. So I'm going to turn it over to Chie here. He's sitting there and he's got no Ishtaya Maza Shni. He lost them. He's getting old. So You got to help him out. So he can't hardly see. I don't know if he can recognize us or not. So just kind of say your names every once in a while so he remembers who he's talking to. Oh, no, I'm teasing, Che. Okay, why not, Che? What do you think?
Gee, not that Ushikana.
I know it.
No, they put that stuff in my eyes, that
Yeah.
diluted so they can look for any disease in my eyes, the opticals and all that stuff. So I had that done at 8:15 this morning, and I had it done before.
Yeah.
And it lasted just a little while, but today, even right now, my eyes are really blurry. But I noticed when you're talking, there's a lot of beeping going on. Then you froze up a couple times. Your image on your screen on Tommy froze up. And there's some dribbling on there.
Oh.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if that's technical
Here
stuff
we go.
interfering. But we as Lakotas, we've been calling and listening to the weather reports all the time, cold weather, and worried about the kids and buses and all that stuff. Anyway, this is why Shichuga kept calling the radio station asking about the weather forecast, what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So the guy on the radio station, he said, well, it looks like there's going to be should be pretty mild, he said. He said, and that's what I know about what's going on weather-wise, he said. So a couple of days later, that same way I called the radio station again. And he said, well, maybe you better get a little more prepared. He said, I think it's going to get a little worse. He said, it's a feeling. He said, I'm observing that. I think it's going to intensify. A couple of days later, they called again. And he said, you better get prepared. He said, there's a big storm coming. He said, it's going to get here. So that caller said, well, how do you know that? He said, these Nakonas and Fort Peck people are piling up a lot of wood. He said, it'll be a big storm.
Cool weather forecasters.
Shoom, went by that one, huh?
I got it.
Okay, anyway, let's talk about natural law. We've had gentlemen that have taken the time and effort to put in a lot of stuff that coincides with what the laws say in the state, South Dakota especially, because I have that. And he in there discusses and talks about the terminology used to interpret all the how would you call it, the process of that our delegates use when they have their big meetings. To me, that is a very significant step, so we can understand things about the laws of the Washichus and how they. But yet, he took the time to translate all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at some point in some time, like copies need to be made and distributed to everybody because it's a learning lesson. Some of the words in there that, beyond me, that he uses to describe resolutions and numbers and all those kinds of things that are associated with law. It's all written.
The Kodiape war.
But for us, the natural law, in our world, it's the harmonious perspective we have is like we look at the weather or the clouds when we, out the window and say, boy, those clouds are building up, and you get this relationship with natural law, this feeling, and then the how would you say the description of the clouds and the stars and all this stuff. Our people had that sophisticated way in which to measure and be aware of what was coming.
Yeah.
I always remember, I said, we know what a yard is. We know what an inch is. But I said, when people traveled, they didn't have no speedometer. And so I asked my aunt, I said, how do they know, that how long it's going to take to get from this point to that point? She said, at one time, she said, our people had terminology associated to that they knew, with all the variables involved, that they would get from, say for where I grew up, from Rock Creek Bullhead and get to the Black Hills, like get to the Wind Cave. They knew it almost down to an hour. If they went this way, went that way, and the weather was this, they could get there. And they had that terminology that was associated at the pace they had to travel, and the amount of food they had to take, and the distances and all. He said, we've lost that. He said, it's gone because nobody preserved it. No one spoke about those things. So our number system was very sophisticated, but we have no clue what it is now. I mean, we can discuss things in miles, we can discuss, but they knew that terminology. And so designation was a very significant thing for people assigned to learn all those things. We don't know how to do that. And so it's very, very interesting that last summer, they brought a man in that was trying to develop terminology associated with math. So there was classes offered at the college for credit and all that stuff. So they asked me to come and participate in that. And so I shared that with that young man. And he got his master's degree by working with people on Pine Ridge and Rosebud and choosing words that describe inches, quarter inch, half inch, quarter mile, and all the mathematical terminology, hexagon, polygram, and all that stuff. So all that was discussed and authenticated. So it'd be interesting to have that. So he has told me he'll be back and interview me and have all that prepared. So I think that's kind of neat. That kind of stuff, we know Obalaya, on top of the hill, Kuta along the river. There's indications and signs that come along with it, the seasonal things that appear before the dams were here for sure, that when the water starts rising, they call that minishoshe. People think of that as dirty water or colored water. And in Minnesota, they call it minishote, right? Shote means something that's like a mist in the air, and then the water has a specific colored tint. But the minishoshe, that refers to the Missouri River that comes up here, because that was the main river that when ice melted and spring started occurring, the water started rising and would start going into the lower parts of the, where they had their teepees for the winter, for what they call it, which means a place where you put your lodge up, your tiprestola or wakea, or nowadays we say teepee.
Teepee, yeah.
And so that when the wind blows, it goes over the top, and so your fire can stay steady and it's warmer, stays out of the real cold air. Wind chill factor,
Oh.
And so when the minishoshe, then they know it's time to prepare to move up on top. And go up at higher elevations. So in that, then the becoming of the spring and then the honoring of the thunder beings comes into play. The offering and sacrifices of the kettle dance, that all comes into play.
Yeah.
And like minishoshe, then they say, Ona shunka yutape. All right, now
you eat the puppy, yeah.
The ceremony comes to the part where the song is sung, and they're now eating the puppy, yeah.
Oh, my step.
And so it's interesting to be able to relate to that, because we see it as a means of prayer and healing. But the other people for many years call us dog eaters. yet other tribes did the same thing, just that we got labeled on it because we practiced that more than anybody else that I know of. And I remember distinctly on how that happened because my dad chose a puppy and he would talk to it, pay attention to it, feed it, get it all chip, you know. And I always wondered, why is he favoring that dog? And how come, so anyway, so I watched him as he prayed and he put his neck over a small log and another log over his neck and then stepped on the end and popped his neck.
Yeah.
And then they singed it. I seen the whole process, and that's what was meant for a ceremony.
Oh,
so anyway, so that, how would you say that, ingrained, that transpired in our generation earlier, and in our early years, what we saw and witnessed is not something that we can share with the next generation. Right? But it can only happen. When people want to learn. So the natural law is that's how we were raised. Nowadays, you have a power of choice, they call it, and balancing life from one world to another. We live in two worlds. That's concrete. We live with that every day. So they understand things in English. And that's how they express themselves. Ukish, those of us who are practicing, so they ask me something, I have to think about it before I answer it immediately.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes words will pop up days later, interpretation wise. And so I think that's a practice that we have to instill in our teachings, that you give it some thought, it'll come back. And I guess there's a word for it. They call it RAM or REM or something like that. And I learned that from my Chodchai. He says, "Tako hey look, he said, he said,
when you come
if
back,
you're thinking about it, he said, just let it go. He said, and sure enough, it's true.
Comes back,
You think about a word that you forgot about, your brain's searching for it. It's like a computer already, so it comes back. And it comes back an old word sometimes. And you have to really think about it. And I oftentimes open a dictionary and I will research it. I will look at it and say, how is this all affiliated, associated holistically? Not just one interpretation. Because if we do that too much, we become ethnocentric. We only think of it in one way. When our world was ethnocentric. It's all in one circle and it will return. It will come back. Even after our spirits are gone, they will come back again. So to me, when you mentioned talking about natural law, those are the first things that popped in my head. So I feel pretty good about all that stuff. Though I can't see your expressions, but four of us sitting here are probably looking at us on our sites and thinking we're Mount Rushmore, right?
I was really making faces at you and you didn't even know.
Another one. Don't curse. That one right there.
But no,
you guys are froze up. Tell me you're up.
And yes, Chie, that's what I was talking about. So people understand, people understand the importance of the different thought process. It's not wrong, it's just diverse. And in that, we've had an opportunity to meld those two worlds together. Like, we don't speak against anybody else's belief. Like, I never denied my Catholicism, but I understood it enhanced me with my understanding of the spiritual side of what I am. So we understand that, and it enriches and enhances your ability to really deal with this natural law more freely and more open. And like the words that you say, and I know that Toshka Chatka, he listens quite well, and that deliberate manner in which those ones that are speak, there's words that have history. One word can have a history way, way back. And until you really gain that understanding of that history, then you don't really grasp the word that it is. And that I found that so interesting, especially how do they say salt in Lakota, Chia? How do they say salt?
Miniskuya, yeah.
And I asked so many people, I said, how come they call it sweet water? I said, why is that? And our buddy Albert White Hat, he come to me and he said, Tommy, you asked, because when I announced, especially down in Denver, I was announcing and I asked, anybody out there, I don't care who you are, you Lakota, Dakota, how come we refer to salt as Miniskuya? And then Albert come up, my old buddy, he said, Tommy, he said that word isn't about sweet water. He said it's a term, mini, and that skuya was pronounced wrong. He said there's another word close to it that means bitter water. And he said that's what is in reference to. The origins of that salt come from that bitter water, eh? And I said, oh, okay. But he said, so it's not, and I don't know what that word was that he was referring to, but Albert Whitehead, he had a way of explaining things, and like Chia is trying to help us understand is these words that we use, like mini shoshe, our reference to the Missouri River up here. That's what we call that, and it was always shared with it. That means like muddy water, or and that makes sense because it's rising and it gets all messed up like that. So that's how we refer to mini shoshe. But Toshka, Chatka, do you have a word that you can share with us as it relates to natural law to help our people, our viewers, understand that diversity that exists there, that isn't just based on rules or regulation, policy and procedure, but more of a natural aspect in regards to that instinctive ability just to maintain that sense of survival, eh? What do you think, Chatka?
So I think first, I don't even know if I should be on this podcast, but
yes, you should.
But let me explain, because Earl brought up a good point. And I think it's something that a lot of our Indian people have been striving for years for, is to be embraced in that world that he grew up in, to be embraced in a world of Shunka Yudabi, to be in the moment of those ceremonies, right? To have that understanding of that world, because many of our people, myself included, grew up in a different world. And we grew up in a world of what Indian looked like to me was a world of abuse, a world of drugs, a world of huge trauma.
That's why you should be here, because of that.
So understanding now, as I came home in 2007 and had to really just go look for myself to really gain some perspective of what is it to be an Indian? What is it to be an Assiniboine man? What is it to carry Dakota blood? What is it to carry Black Hasaba blood? What is it to carry that Washiju blood of my mother and understand all of that, but yet understanding that my whole life, my Indian blood has always been at the front in my thoughts, in the way I behaved, good and bad, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to go talk with the kids last week or 2 weeks ago for Paula Firemoon and Olivia Johnson's program.
Yeah.
And they were talking about cultural values. And I was visiting with Elijah about this. And I was, first and foremost, I'm not by any means a speaker of Assiniboine. I'm definitely a second language learner and not even good at that. But
you are.
But the thing about it was, I was thinking about that word. We're talking about natural law. And to me, like the encompassing thing of that is a spirituality. And it was really difficult for me to understand that word because of what I just talked about, because where I come from and where I'm at now. And so I was visiting with Mison, Elijah, and we were talking about that word, spirituality. What does that encompass? Yeah. And to me, I think that encompasses everything that Earl and that you were talking about. It's sometimes these things that we can't put a description to, we can't put a word to, but we understood this because, like what Earl talked about, you know, the importance of understanding these things when he was growing up, and those stories that were taught to him about Minishoshe, right? And what does that really mean? Like, we look at it now and it's just, we go out to the Missouri River, but there were so many indicators of what that body of water, that constantly moving energy was telling our people. And so I think about that because it seems like in all of our songs, there's that word wichochange. Wichochange. I see that word a lot when we sing for our relatives who have gone on to the other side, who have made their journey. And so I guess for me today would be good, you know, as a learner.
What's your definition of wichochange?
That's what I want to know. That's say so, because to me, I think kind of like Elijah. When I was first learning the language, somebody would say a word and I'd say, okay, all right. But what does it mean? Because I know it doesn't mean that. That's what English, how we've taken it to push it over and make it kind of fit this weird English language. But what does that word really mean? Because my understanding of that word is very simplistic, a way of life. Yeah, but I think that word goes much deeper, like Earl was talking about. And so that's the kind of things I'm always interested is understanding, you know, that the words break down and there's understanding in that word. And there's so much packed into our native language that I'm always curious to see that word, wichochange. And I always, and not very often here, you know, Tommy, Elijah, our speakers are leaving us, and you know, we're getting to a point which is scary, that I'm one of the people that, you know, people come to for Assiniboine, and that's really scary. That's a scary prospect. But when we talk about that word, I guess Earl and Tommy and even Elijah, wichochange, I would like that more understanding of that word, because to me, that really is talking about, in my eyes, that's talking about natural law, because that encompasses our way of life. And right now, that can be those two worlds. It can be the one world. It could be three worlds we're living in, right? We have to walk in all these different worlds nowadays. So that would be my question, I guess.
You know, Toshka, you belong here because of what you just said. You're representative of probably 95% of the people that want to learn in that way. The common minds, you know, in that common mindset that provides us, like Elijah, Earl, and myself, we've been doing this for almost a year now, trying to convey that diversity that exists based on that uniqueness that we represent, based on our ability to be uninhibited and continue to pursue these things. Like I said, the enhancement that the Catholic Church provided for me for 27 years in my life, and then as a result of the spiritual side calling me over in respects to what the indigenous people's reality is, that connection to the spirit world, we were called this way, and I was open-minded enough because I was trying to be really understanding of that wowichada, wowichala, that faith, and in that process, I opened my, and I didn't want to be as afraid, but like you, Toshka, Chatka, I was afraid too, man. Boy, but yet look at what you've done. You followed that. You've understood the importance of being open-minded, to try to go beyond that fear, to realize the importance of, remember I talked about the cultural ineptness, based on the fact that we're trying to bring about cultural awareness. So at some point in life, we can maintain some sense of being culturally responsive. You see? Not just from an Indian world or indigenous world, but both ways. We learned about them. Maybe we know all the proper etiquette and all that, the rules and regulations they go by. That's fine. Well, now, based on that cultural ineptness as it relates to Dakota, Lakota, or Nakona, we're wishing for them, based on our ability to share this cultural awareness, for them to become culturally responsive. Is that cool or what? Give me a hallelujah, boys. I'm preaching. What do you think, Elijah? Toshka Elijah?
Holy smokers.
Oh man, you guys are bringing it today. No, I just like sitting and listening to you guys, and you know, I know I talked about this with actually Tommy a while back, like whether it's learning language or visiting with elders. It's almost like when we do this, especially even on the podcast, like we're creating our own little hochoka. Like we can sit there and we're putting these ideas out there, and then we can take it different things, almost like a buffet. I share that because my brother here, he always likes eating. So a buffet of knowledge. We can
Yeah, too.
yeah. We really like to eat, always going to the buffet line.
Yeah.
So I think the viewers, guys can take this and guys can learn and listen and like we said, it's always documented. And that we have like over a year and a half worth of material, and all kind of, it's all interrelated, but it's all a little different every time. So every time we revisit it. So that's what I really like. And then, you know, definitely, you know, China, Marty here, he always shares a lot, super humble. And so whenever he shares of different things, it takes me back to when we used to go to a lot of different inibis, you know, like 2-3 a week, man. We were just sweat hogs really going at it. And he's the one that told me about gamer thumb. I was like, what's that? And he used to come over to my parents' house, and we just did a game all night, man. Your thumbs would get sore. That's a gamer thumb. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. But I want to thank you guys for helping us out with this. So,
you know, and again, Toshka, that's the thing. You know, Toshka Chatka brings a lot into our arena to help people understand that there is a common mindset. There is an opportunity for us to even enhance our ability to live on a reservation, if you will, for lack of a better word, with the respect that we're hoping as First Nations people, we're wishing for that reciprocity to come back to us, and don't call us racist or stuff because we go to powwows and celebrations and puppy ceremonies and stuff like that, and hang around Indians and all that good stuff. But to be more understanding of, you know, that cultural ineptness that would make you say statements like that, where you can go beyond that and become more culturally aware by whatever means, whatever your source is, so that you can become respectfully culturally responsive. You think that's true, Chia? What's your thoughts, Chia? Next, he froze. Look.
You know, when I first heard the word Chatka, you know, when I was younger, a lot of these guys are on there. For short, they say Chatka.
Oh.
So I was thinking, I said, there's got to be more to that word than just Chatka, you know. And so my uncle, Oliver Brownwolf, he said, well, if they're saying on the left, then what about the right? You know, I said, right. You know, you never think about, you hear the word Chatka so much, you know, you kind of forget that it's Isla, you know, Islayatna. But the action of that word is Chatkatakya, from the left, you know. It's a motion, it's Chatkatakya, you know. So whatever action took place, you know, whatever that person did to get that name, just for, how would you call it? A term of endearment, they shortened it to Chatka, right? If you go into treaties, you'll see that name too, you know, just plain written Chatka. But on the other side, it's Islayatna. So it has direction, movement to more than just one action of being, I guess in English we say lefty, you know.
Southpaw.
Chatka means it's being observed from, on your left hand, left side. And Omagahin should say slat, you know. So that terminology oftentimes, depending on who interpreted it. Yeah, so you're looking at the two-faced, you know. Yeah. So all that is relevant in this balance that we keep, you know, and how we utilize it in our life, you know. Ampa Hihuni, and so we name our kids, they call them Ampa for short. And so, you know, like one of my granddaughter's name is Ampa Kikta, you know. She's always up before daybreak. She's watching me now. Yeah. So then you go back, and he was asking a question about the Wichoha, you know. my mom walked up to me one day. She said, well, Leha, she said, oh, she said, you're always talking English now, which is education, public school, you know. So she said, La Jolia, Wichocha, she said, Gnoni Omanikte, she said, and why did she say that for me? You know, so it took me a couple of years to come to the understanding. Without understanding the values of our people, she said, you're going to have a difficult time in life. So it's come to that point now where we've learned that balance. You know, we learn how to think in both the worlds to a point where we got really efficient at it. You know, I feel really excited because so many of our younger people are starting to grasp that necessity to keep that culture alive. And it has to be done through the language, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, like the word hiana washte, you know, I said, where did that come from? You know, hiana, right, is a reference to a time, you know?
Yesterday.
If you want to say this morning, you say hiana le de or ne, you know, washte. That comes from, like you said, Catholicism. It comes from church people, whether they were Episcopalian, whatever, but they wanted something easy to say something in their language, you know, for a term of endearment. So they say, hiana washte. So you walk into the school, and that's what all the instructors and teachers picked up on that. So they, hiana washte, hiana. Everybody's saying
yesterday
it,
I had a good day.
And the word doksha is another one.
Yeah.
Doksha is another one. Everybody on the phone, doksha.
Yeah.
Doksha, you know. Yeah. Me, I like to say dohatuka whenever we meet again. I like saying that. So I say that a lot, you know. But anyway, what I'm saying is that we have so many, how would you say, interpretations that we have to keep teaching our young kids, you know. Like we have girls walking down the hallway saying, hata, you know. That's a man's word, you know.
Yeah.
Grandmas would say, khabia, you know, move aside. You know, and men, you know, they say, ha, to, you know, or talk about the weather. You know, that was the first step. So whenever it snows, I walk in there and there's a Filipino guy in there. I say, oh, ang peto gada iya washtero. How? He'd say, washtero. So he understands that it snowed, so it's a good day to track, good day to hunt.
Yeah.
You can find the tracks in the fresh snow.
Yeah.
So that balance that we had associating our minds with our environment for survival, all right?
Yeah.
Too much has come too easy, you know?
Yeah.
So you incorporate that into your language, and other people will learn, you know? Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
Where's your glasses there, Tommy?
They're right here, but
what happened to your glasses?
I got them here somewhere.
Oh.
Oh, right here. But they make me look like
don't lose
Harry
them, man.
Potter.
She tried to.
Make me look like Harry Potter.
I thought I took some kind of.
Potter.
I thought I went on some. I thought I went on some trip and everything was pink and purple. Hugging the road, man. I made it home. You're froze up. Yeah, you're. There you go. Now you're smiling. Watch that. And then Elias is froze up. Chatka, I don't know if he's profiling it or what. I don't know if he's moving or not.
You know,
anyway, like pictures today are got reverbs going on in it.
Yeah, that's.
I didn't pick up on a lot of words you were using.
Lagging,
yeah. Like when you said long, yeah. What do they call it?
But Chatka, he said that he doesn't speak language. He speaks. That's why I was laughing, because he does speak. And look how many people in our way kind of get inhibited about coming forward. Because like my uncle, remember Uncle Shep? Geez, Uncle Shep and Tom and Earl used to get together. Yeah. Oh, my uncle just be so happy. He'd just be glowing because he found somebody he could speak fluently with. And oh, man, I would just... But he said, even if you could say one word, you're speaking the language. And so he said, use it as much as you can, incorporate it, even if you have to interpret it in English for the sake of those that are listening, but use your language, because the enunciation is key. And like me, I'm so I used to be afraid to speak my language, but now I just say whatever I say, whatever word I know. And then they get mad at me for putting the kota, lakota, and akona words all together. But I don't care because of what my uncle said. And then when I need to be corrected, they'll correct me and I'll say, oh, okay. But it's not a correction saying you're wrong. It's kind of an enhancement and enrichment for the sake of you wishing to continue to pursue your language. So Toshka, Chatka, don't ever be afraid to step up, and don't deny yourself the fact that because of all these things. Remember that story I told about my dad telling me about those ones that are having a hard time going across the river? Yeah, same thing. So it's more looking inwardly and becoming secure and comfortable with who and what you are. You don't have to prove nothing to nobody. Just live it, eh? And then in that process, it comes out in such a beautiful manner, because N-E-L-O, that's you. Yeah, kind of like that.
Ihana watched it.
Spade, yeah. That's
Yesterday, I had a good day.
spade, yeah.
Spade, yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Oh,
spade, yeah.
Next year, Woi Wanka Wambru he. Dohan Duka, is that what you said?
Okay, what do, yeah.
No, how do you say it when we meet again?
How do you mean?
Yeah, that word instead of doksha, like that.
Dohantuk ash.
Dohantu
ash.
Dohantuk ash.
Dohantuk ash. Yeah.
Ash. That word. What does that word mean? Ash.
Okay, it's spelled ash. Is that there's a possibility it may not happen, but when it does, we'll see each other. So Dohantu is time frame, and ash. It's a possibility that. So better say it now than say Toksha, because the whole word is supposed to be Toksha wa Chianking, but Kabbalah, so everybody says Toksha.
Cut it in half, yeah.
Right, yeah. So Tohantuk actually the older way is Tohantuk
Yeah.
Tohantuk
Yeah. When I run into you again.
But I'll tell you a good one, Chatka. I'll tell you a good one. When I first started teaching, nobody here, I was the first Lakota language teacher at the Standing Rock, at that time, the community college, Standing Rock Community College. And I was young, I was 19 years old, went to a public school, and they asked me if I'd be interested in teaching a class because the college was starting. I said, I don't want to be a teacher. They said, well, it's just for a little while, give it a try. You get paid for it, and I wouldn't have a job. So I said, well, okay, so I'll try it. And I didn't think I was going to get that many students, but there was lots of interested kids that wanted to learn. So the way I was introduced to language learning was reading and writing and conjugating. And so as I worked with the kids on pronunciations, or the students' pronunciations, they're getting pretty good at it. So I wanted to put it to a test. So I asked his grandma, she's from Cannonball, and very, very informative woman when it comes to history. Anyway, I asked her to come, and I said, she said, there's a stipend for you. I said, she said, she said, oh, I can do that. She said, wow, so she came. And so we got into the classroom. She go a little bio about herself and all this and stuff. So we started in. And so we started talking about Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and how much of that was here. And then we got into the language part of it. And so I asked her, I said, he said, well, Shicho Ohena Chanle Umpapi, so Tokiske, or they're always smoking. So here, Lakota, he's Tokiske Elbe, she said, Chanli, she said. So gave the students time to write it. Then I wrote it up on the board, raised their hands and see how many got it correct with the aspiration markers and nasalization. And I said, Dakota Ganesh. And she said, Chandi. So we went through the same process. And finally I said, Nakona Ganesh. I said, Dokishke, cigarette help. And she said, Chana. And she covered her mouth. Ma, she said, you made me talk nasty.
Oh no.
Chana's the groin area.
You know, Earl, up in Morley, that one guy was up there announcing the power, and he said, Dukabi Nuha, eh? I said, I don't know what you're saying. He said, oh, you'd say Chanli. I said, yeah, Chanli Luha, eh? I said, how? And so I give him a cigarette. I said, what would you say? What'd you call that? He said, Dukabi. And so I didn't want to ask him. So I wait till I come back. And my auntie Phil was living out there by Oswego. And so she's fluent in Nakona. And I said, Auntie, I said, they call this cigarettes Dukabi. What is that? And she said, wait, let me think about it, nephew. And so she said, I know what it is. She said, Dukabi Nuha, did you bring your fixins? Eh? Could you translate that? Do you understand that, Chatka?
Yeah.
Dukabi Nuha. Is that what about you, Chia Earl? Could you translate Dukabi fixins?
Yeah, that's well, you have your duhas,
Kabi.
and then I guess it's descriptive when it comes to whatever you're
Dukabi.
referring to, as far as a social gesture.
Yeah.
Do you have some available kind of thing, like
And
everybody met each other, always had a
it
smoke
meant
together.
that the old smoke. Remember the fixins, the tobacco. That's what they call the cigarette. Yeah. So I thought that was quite interesting because it's so descriptive, eh? And how we enunciate these words and all that good stuff. But people get afraid of that. They're afraid to say it wrong. I just say whatever, and let them tell me how they could do that. And we need to be really inquisitive in that way when we're interested in that language, and how we do these things, how we present them, when do we say them, when don't we say them, how do we utilize it, and the conjugation of verbs and whatnot. There's also a manner in which you would use these particular words and the context, I guess the white man would say. Does that make sense to you guys? Mm-hmm. So I'm never afraid to get out there and just say something. Even when I pray, I guess they kind of know what I'm saying, but I always say the same prayer over and over again anyway. So just a thought, just something.
There's innocence involved with our kids,
Yeah.
Like the word Wataja, their innocence,
Oh.
So when we get all the work done, we do all our language learning, and then I'll take the drum and I'd sing a song, and these little kindergarten first graders, they say, and one little boy really jumped up and he started just kicking it. And the other boys, they started giggling. So he stopped. I don't want to do this. He said, they're laughing at me,
Yeah. Oh,
I said, remember, I said, what they're doing is making them happy. That's why they're laughing. I said, you're making them happy. So all of you get out here, let's make everybody happy. So I hit that drum. They're all a bunch of grasshoppers in the field jumping all over the place. So gaining that experience in the classroom, you know how to work the kids so they can get over that, that little trial of humility,
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that teaching in the classroom, Earl, I think that I think we have to understand too, this natural law, that perspective. I think when you were maybe it's been around, it has, but before you, when your grandparents or your parents, natural law was that understanding of this one world. And I think it's important to understand because our kids are still the same Indian kids. They're still inquisitive. And I think we have to be, that's a really good point you brought up about when that happens, because I've had instances in my own life where trying to learn our way of life or our understanding better of who we are, and people have laughed. And then it's really turned me off from wanting to go to those people anymore. And that right there is really good knowledge, because when that happens now moving forward, that's how I'm going to address those types of things, is we're making people happy, and that's everybody make people happy, and let's all join in on this. And that really goes for our adults as well, right? That's not just our kindergarten or preschoolers. That's good advice for our people in general. That's really good. I like.
Toshka Chatka. Niche ole chiemita. Nexi enita.
Okay.
Yeah, Nietzsche ole.
So you break up when you're talking, you break up sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Earl. Something dribbling when you talk.
His name is the Curious One. That's what I say in the language. That's my older brother. So he's your uncle. So how? Hey? See? He's my older brother, so catch it.
That's no why.
Next sheet. Nita. Slonwa.
Next sheet. Dukabi. Dukabi nuha.
There we go.
Dukabi nuha next sheet.
Nietzsche ole chajet.
There's a lot of dribbling going on in the rock. They used to, my Indian name used to be runs along the river with his nose in the water, but it's too long. So,
next. Here we go.
Yeah.
So we're at the top of the hour. Do we have any parting comments? There's a lot of folksabi that I've heard. It's made me feel real good, man. So I appreciate each and every one of you joining us today, and thank you for joining us out on social media, on the webinar here. A couple little quick announcements. I have to do that plug for the Indigiverse Multimedia Festival 2022. We've been really trying to plug it the past couple weeks. I think they're accepting about 15 applications that they'll truly fund, but we still want to truly flood Fort Pitt Community College, wherever our listeners are, to send an application in for multimedia. It could be like a culture, if you're into the STEM language history projects, visit with us over here at Fort Pitt Community College and we'll hook you up. I've already been getting some responses from local community members. In fact, there's a lady that said she said that her mother is one of the oldest living Assiniboines here on Fort Peck. Was wondering if we could bring her on over and record her about family history stuff from like she heard from her parents and grandparents and stuff that even if it doesn't get funded through the project, it's like a good historical archive for her family. I said, sure, we'll hook you up, man. So like, those are the types of things that we're looking for. If you don't want to get in front of the mic yourself, record yourself, maybe a kushi, maybe an unkana, somebody that you admire, and we can record them and document that real cool history, kind of like what we get to do by listening to you folks here today. And I think there's a lot of rich history around here that it's an opportunity for them to share. That there's that, and then I also want to send some love to our student of the year, Miracle Spotted Wolf. Again, congratulations. And with that, do you guys have any other parting comments? Henana, Henakchi, Oha, Ampeti Washte Yoha.
Ihana Washte.
Yesterday. Fort Peck Community College.